Welcome to our first podcast for O-Liv. So we're going to talk about how we found O-Liv and the benefits of olive oil, kind of High Phenolic Olive Oil 101. So I'm Dr. Pete Matos, and this is my partner, Billy Jo St.Ores, who is a nurse by training. And I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, so my name is Billy Jo. I go by Jo. I am a nurse, like Doc said, by education. I was an emergency room nurse for the beginning of my career and for the last, 10 years or so. Dr. Matos and I have been working together in the realm of workers' health and safety. And part of that, with that comes some work that we do with tactical wellness and fitness. So working with police, fire, and other first responders for their long-term health and wellness. And a portion of that is a dietary component, which is how we got to O-Liv. But Doc, I'll let you introduce yourself before we dive into O-Liv and how we got here.
Yep. So I'm Dr. Pete Matos. I'm trained in occupational medicine and preventive medicine. Trained in the military. They paid for medical school at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and also spent a year at Johns Hopkins getting my master's in public health. And so, as Joe was saying, we kind of got into nutrition as part of our tactical fitness and wellness. Being former military, making sure you're always fit and healthy, is key to the job. And the way we kind of got involved with the Mediterranean diet was through what's called Feeding America's Bravest. It was a study done by Dr. Stefanos Kallis and his team at Harvard, working with fire departments in Boston and Indianapolis. And as part of that, the number one thing they asked people to do was to switch from butter to olive oil. And as part of that, I went to a conference, Mediterranean Diet Health Conference, about 3 years ago. And when I was there, what I learned was that 90% of the olive oil that's in the supermarket cannot make the health claim, which I was pretty shocked by. And what I learned is not all olive oil is created equal, and that the magic in olive oil, the real health component, is the phenols. And that's kind of started our journey down the road of high phenolic olive oil. And one of the things, just basic things, olive oil does a lot of different things. There's so much science. We can leave a link. There's over 99 pages of research. So, don't believe us, read it for yourself. But that's how we kind of got into the high phenolic olive oil, and also focusing on the amount of what we call polyphenols per liter. In the European Union, they basically say that, you can make a health claim above 250 milligrams of polyphenols per liter. What we're working with, most of the ones we're working with are more potent, probably 800 milligrams or above. And the ones that we're putting in the capsules are 2,000 milligrams per liter. And so the way to dose it is basically 30 mLs of high phenolic olive oil, or 1 to 2 tablets of our supplement. Now, the important thing to understand is that it's an agricultural supplement, meaning that high phenolic olive oil is really hard to come by. It takes a lot of work. It's from the earliest harvest, basically late August to early September is where you're going to get that 2,000 to or above polyphenols. And later on, it starts to drop to 800 or 1,000 by, mid to late October. And so for those, if that's all we can get, you might end up having to get one dose. It could be 4 to 6 tablets. So it is an agricultural product, and I think it's important to remember that.
Yeah, I think let's circle back just a little bit to high phenolic olive oil and availability within the U.S. and what drove us to kind of seek alternates for our patients, because that is the driving factor behind O-Liv and how it started. But high phenolic olive oil is not readily available within the United States, particularly that olive oil greater than 500 polyphenols per dose. So the majority of olive oil that we find in the supermarket, a lot of it is cut with other oils, right? the other portion of it is that even what's in the supermarket won't meet a health claim. And so when we were looking to suggest, make these suggestions for dietary changes to our patients, we ran into difficulties because we could not even point them to a place within the U.S., a supermarket or a chain store within the U.S. that necessarily would even carry the types of olive oil that provide this health benefit, which is what drove us to O-Liv and how we got to looking at trying to bring a supplement to the U.S. The other part of it is a personal thing for me because high phenolic olive oil has a very distinct and long-lasting flavor profile that some of us, me, do not prefer. Now, I love the benefits that come from high phenolic olive oil, but I do not love the flavor. And so the other portion of getting this into a capsule formulation partially was for shelf stabilization, right? Which we can dive into. But the other portion is you get all the benefits of olive oil without having to suffer through the taste. For me, I know, Doc, you enjoy the flavor of high phenolic olive oil, but I do not. So let's talk a little bit too, I think, and if you want to speak to it, about what happens to those phenols from the time that the olive is pressed till it gets to, let's just even say, the shelf of a supermarket here in the United States.
Yeah, so typically the clock starts ticking. So, let's say you bottle, for simple math, we'll say 1,000 milligram olive oil in September. By the time it probably hits the shelves, it's down to 900 milligrams. And any of the high phenolic olive oils that you're going to get from the Mediterranean, Greece, Italy, Spain, Croatia, Tunisia, etc., they're going to be in good bottles, right? You want to keep it out of sunlight. You want to keep it at not extreme temperatures. So it starts degrading the minute that, that olive oil is pressed. So you get your bottle of, 1,000 milligrams. Realistically, it's probably down to 900. You now open that bottle. That bottle is good for 90 days from the time you open it if you leave it at room temperature. You can extend the shelf life of that high phenolic olive oil by putting it in the refrigerator. You can get to 6 months. So obviously these, depending how much you cook with them, it's pricey, but obviously it's healthy. And so one of the things we wanted to look at was how could we get something that is stabilized that maybe could last for a year or longer. And that's where we were able to partner with Dr. Alexandros, who has a mechanism to molecular stabilize the phenols. He's had a study going on for over 2 years now, so we can say that based on his study, the olive oil is stable for 2 years at a minimum, probably longer.
And the reason for the reduction in polyphenols is because the polyphenol in and of itself is basically a free radical scavenger, right? So once that polyphenol is exposed to air, it starts doing its work. And even bottled, unopened, studies have shown that a bottle of high phenolic olive oil loses about 40% of its polyphenols, even if it's unopened, stored correctly. You're still going to lose that polyphenol count. So you take into consideration when it was bottled and when it actually ends up in your cupboard as well, right? You have to consider that. You might not even have your hands on that olive oil for 6 or 8 months after it's been pressed. So, when we were looking at this, we were trying to find something that brought the benefits and the medicinal quality of olive oil to people, and that's why we have this product. And yes, we have partnered with a researcher in Greece who has developed a process that provides stabilization of those polyphenols for up to 2 years, probably longer, but that's what we have research to back at this time. So O-Liv, like we said, is a capsule that you take daily. It provides the health benefits of the polyphenols, which are significant. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Doc, about some of the reasons why you suggest high phenolic olive oil to our patients?
Yeah, so I think, one of the things is, lipids, right? So, in Europe, in some countries, you can actually prescribe high phenolic olive oil. You can prescribe the 2,000 milligrams, almost like a statin. And that really high phenolic olive oil has a real punch to it. So hence what Joe's talking about is that taste. Some people don't like that taste. The other thing too is when you take the olive oil to kind of get the maximum health benefits, you want to take it first thing in the morning. So you take your 2 tablespoons or you take your 2 to 4 tablets of, O-Liv. You can have water, and then after 20, 30 minutes, then you can eat or have your coffee. And the reason for that is you don't want to change the acidity in your stomach. You want to maximize the absorption of the high phenolic olive oils to get the maximum health benefit. And so one of the main things we focus on is, it's diet, it's exercise, but with olive oil, the health benefits are long. And there's a lot of research on it over many years because of the 7-country Mediterranean diet study, and also because of, if you're familiar with the Blue Zone study, which there's a great show on Netflix, you can watch about that. But one of the things it does help with is lowering blood lipids, so your cholesterol. You can almost think of it as a natural statin, right? So kind of just like statins, you have different potency. Same concept here with phenols. You kind of have the 500, the 1,000, and then the super strong, the 2,000. So what I always encourage people is, obviously speak with your physician, try diet, exercise, add high phenolic olive oil, and see if that changes your blood lipids. And then, unfortunately, if it doesn't, then there might be a genetic component and you might need medication. But I'm a big believer in you got to give diet and exercise a try first, kind of see how that goes. Try for, a natural, remedy. And then if that fails, then you kind of look at something more pharmaceutical.
And I think our basic approach to wellness for most of our patients is healing yourself, right? Healing yourself and your body, either through exercise or fitness portion, but also through food and utilizing food as medicine. And we say those things to our patients frequently. The most important thing that we can do for our overall health is to manage what we put into our bodies. And so the interesting thing, or the thing that's exciting about olive oil, is it's one of the most widely researched superfoods on the planet. It's been researched for years. The health benefits have been medically proven time and time again. The polyphenols within olive oil decrease chronic inflammation, and what we've seen within medical research for years now is that chronic inflammation leads to cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes, a lot of even neurological conditions. And so olive oil has been studied for the treatment of many chronic disease processes and has shown benefit. And so the good thing about the supplement here is that it is a food product, right? So we're ingesting olive oil in a capsule form. You're healing yourself through food. The anti-inflammatory effects of olive oil is similar to that of ibuprofen. So even from a treatment of chronic pain and chronic inflammation, there could be potential benefits for people to utilize olive oil or the supplement for that as well. And then, Doc, I know that you've looked into and have more knowledge than me on some of the impact of cancer treatment and cancer cells when it comes to high phenolic olive oil. But the other interesting part is obesity and how it impacts obesity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, kind of the overarching theme is it helps with your cardiovascular health, specifically lipids. There are studies that show specifically in the Italy and Greece, when they looked at, blood cancer rates, the areas where there was obviously a large amount of high phenolic olive oil utilized, those rates seem to be lower. And then also you were talking about, neurologic health. There's a fabulous researcher out of the University of Thessaloniki named Magdalena Solaki. She's an MD, PhD, and neurologist by trade, and she does a lot of research specifically on brain health. And one of the most interesting things is the first recorded use of olive oil or olive leaf extract is by Hippocrates, and they talk about the use of it for headaches. So it's kind of like the first medicinal use of things. And then the third area is specifically on weight control and diabetes. So a lot of people are focused on how caloric, olive oil is. And when you look at the Mediterranean diet study, that's really not the case. Specifically, you look at Crete. Crete uses olive oil. Everything is drenched in olive oil. And one of the first researchers, Ansel Keys from the UK, had gone to Crete, and he had pictures of this food just sitting in olive oil. When they looked at specifically southern Italy and then Greece, and when they looked at weight over time, over 40 years, what you see is other, Northern European, the weight starts to go up as you age, but in Southern Europe, the weight's there. And they controlled for age, walking, smoking status, and all those things. Simply consuming a large amount of olive oil seemed to be in and of itself a predictor of weight control over time. And so why is that? So there's a couple things. My accountant, who is unfortunately a type 2 diabetic, was going to have to go on insulin. And so he said, what do I need to do? And so he got some high phenolic olive oil. He switched to a Mediterranean diet. He also started walking 20 minutes after every meal. And then also really just try to live a healthier lifestyle. As part of that, though, he would take the high phenolic olive oil every morning, and then at lunch, he did some extra. He did vegetables with high phenolic olive oil and a little bit of vinegar, right? And what he found was he felt full. It was almost a natural appetite suppressant. And so when you dive into the molecular biology of it, it does produce, it does basically enhance GLP-1, release. So it's, kind of natural, among other things too, but it helps in the satiety part of the brain. It helps you feel full. And it also, the other piece too that's really interesting when they looked again in Greece and Italy is that when you look at a piece of broccoli or carrot, you add high phenolic olive oil. Both of those things in and of themselves are healthy. When you combine them, the high phenolic olive oil they found can help enhance the absorption of nutrients, even more than just eating a raw vegetable by itself, which I thought was really interesting. There's just a lot of benefit to the olive oil from a health standpoint, especially from a weight standpoint. And I think there is a difference in how American dietitians are trained versus, say, European dietitians. European dietitians really focus on the quality of the food and not so much calorie counting. There's a difference there. And, the researchers, if I go back to, Feeding America's Bravest with the firefighters, most of those researchers were more than half were European trained, the other half were US trained, but they were trained in Boston, so they had exposure to those European dietitians, and their philosophy was a little different. Again, number one thing, we want you to switch from butter to high phenolic olive oil was the number one thing we asked the firefighters.
Well, and I think that what you're saying basically is that not all calories are created equal. And so something that is more potentially less calories could still be more detrimental to long-term health. And the calories that you get from the high phenolic olive oil come with the anti-inflammatory parts of it, as well as, some of, like you said, feeling full for longer. And then also helping your body to absorb other nutrients within other foods. And so there's more benefit. Those calories pack a greater punch, so to speak, for people. And then I think, again, when you look at how our body utilizes calories or nutrition, how efficient our cells can be, they can be more efficient with high phenolic olive oil than maybe some other fats or things that we put into our bodies. So we see a lot of dietary trends, right, within the market over the years. We've seen all sorts of different trends within diet, from low carb, to high carb, low fat diets. But the Mediterranean diet has stuck in there as one of the best diets from a medical standpoint. So what do you think makes the Mediterranean diet better for the general population than, let's say, the carnivore diet or, just a high fat ketogenic diet?
Right. So I think each of those diets has their place depending on the particular individual. But overall, when you look at the Mediterranean diet, basically nothing is restrictive, right? So if you look at a Mediterranean diet, 80% of your base is fruits, vegetables, basically beans, those type of things. The other 20% is lean meats, chicken, fish, poultry, but then you can have red meat. You can also have alcohol in a small amount. Nothing's restrictive. It's that top of the pyramid is really like not a lot of red meat, not a lot of sweets. That's kind of where it's at. And when you look across the globe, I'll use the blue zones again. When you look at the different areas they looked at, Loma Linda, California, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, Costa Rica, and then also Okinawa, Japan, what they find is these areas, and just quick about the blue zones, there was an Italian researcher who had a blue marker, and on the pen where he found, he used a marker wherever he found the most people that lived to 100, he put blue marks, hence blue zone. But the one thing that you look at across, what do these 5 places have in common? And one of the things you look at is their diet is mainly vegetarian, high in natural antioxidants, not a lot of meat or no meat at all. Loma Linda and Okinawa are specifically vegetarian. Sardinia and Italy and Greece, again, they follow that Mediterranean diet. So it's not that meat's bad, it's that meat should be a small portion.
Just to chime in a little bit, just to say that all foods in the most natural form have a place within our diet. Those things bring micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, other things that we can't get from other parts of our diet. So everything has a place, right, within our diet. There's a reason why there is variety in these long-standing cultures, right? Like you're talking about people who live to be 100. There's a variety of types of foods. They eat each type of food, and sometimes if you limit yourself to one macronutrient, for instance, a ton of protein, and you don't take into consideration carbohydrates and other things, your body is missing out on vital pieces of nutrients that it needs to actually function. And so you're making dietary and lifestyle changes that actually may be detrimental to your long-term goals. So you can continue.
Yeah. Then I think the other piece too with the carnivore diet is everybody's different. So, the carnivore diet really comes from Atkins, right? Mm-hmm. And the foundation of that Atkins diet was to really help people that had seizures. And the thought is putting them in ketosis was neuroprotective. It protects your brain. What I always tell people is if you're on a carnivore diet, test your cholesterol. And most of the police or fire that I see that are on a carnivore diet, their cholesterol is not in line. And what happens is cholesterol is all about the ratio of good and bad cholesterol. Do you have sticky cholesterol or non-sticky cholesterol? And generally, specifically with red meat, if you're eating a lot of red meat, that causes inflammation. And everybody's genetics is also different. So there's some people that, they are on a carnivore diet and their cholesterol is fine and good for them. Everything's different, but I think whatever diet you're on, you gotta kind of do some data. You gotta look at your cholesterol and kind of see what's going on and adjust.
Well, the other portion of that is, a lot of people on ketogenic diets end up with adrenal fatigue, particularly females, because those complex carbohydrates are essential to proper hormone balance within all of us. And so when you take something out of our diet that you can't obtain from other portions of it, you can start to throw off your own body. And you're correct, some people are able to do that diet or do a very low fat diet, can do great on it, but the majority of the population is going to start to feel the impact of losing those vital nutrients.
And that's exactly right. And I think the other thing, when you look at different types of diets, there's another show called Game Changers on Netflix, another one I kind of recommend. They took like 3 NFL athletes, they gave one a steak burrito, one a chicken burrito, and then one a vegetarian burrito, which was rice, beans, cheese, right? And when they spun down their blood 4 hours after they ate, the one who ate the steak burrito, it's yellow, and cloudy. You can't see through it. The one who ate the chicken, it's light yellow, you can sort of see through it. And then that vegetarian one, it's clear. To me, that kind of tells the story of why is the vegetarian diet so much better than, say a carnivore diet for most people. And I think that really is the story. I think the data is clear. But again, I don't like to tell people you can't, eat anything. That's why I like the Mediterranean diet. It's all about, 5 out of 7 days a week. Most of your diet is vegetarian. You do have meats. I mean, I don't not eat anything. I'll eat steak, but I don't eat steak all the time. I eat steak maybe once, twice a month at most. But that's my preference. But it's also finding out what works for you. And also, how does your body respond to that diet? And what are your, how does your body respond and make cholesterol? We're all a little different, but for the most part, the data that's out there is pretty clear. A Mediterranean diet that is, 80% vegetarian, 20% lean meats and fresh foods, a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of sweets now and then. I think it's a very reasonable diet to follow.
Well, and that's really the importance, right? So what you're looking for is something that's sustainable over an extended amount of time, because anything can be impactful, and we see this in healthcare all the time. Someone will start a very strict regimented diet or workout plan. They'll lose weight. It's very difficult to stick to, and then you have a roller coaster of weight. And so you're much better off to find something that is sustainable and maintainable for you. Something that allows flexibility and allows us to live our life. And that's kind of what the Mediterranean diet does, right? It allows you to have that flexibility, and it's sustainable, and you can adjust things, just like you said, to your own body. But it is inclusive, and it's based on whole foods and utilizing things in the most natural form and avoiding those processed foods and sugars. And so you can't go wrong with that. And then you add in, some other health benefits, antioxidant benefits, particularly of the high phenolic olive oil. And it really is healing yourself through what you're putting in your body.
Yeah, the food is the medicine. The most important thing we do every day is what we eat. And it's taking the time to really think. It's hard when you're stressed and you're busy, and it's very easy to eat unhealthy anywhere in the U.S. or even in Europe. It takes some effort to eat healthy and to be conscientious and to have a plan. It's a real challenge.
So, that's one of the benefits of the supplement is you are able to get those benefits of the high phenolic olive oil without having to drench our food in it. Like you said, from a taste standpoint, that might not be, what everyone wants to do here in the US, but then it's just a tool. It's a tool to use within those dietary changes and lifestyle changes, just like we spoke. But it's a powerful tool. It's something that can impact your long-term health and longevity, and it's something we're super excited about.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, the supplements I take fish oil, I take a CoQ10. During the winter, I take some vitamin D. This is something to add to your supplement regimen, I think, to help with, anti-aging, anti-inflammation, kind of those natural things. Is it a cure-all? No, it should be part of a healthy diet and exercise where that's part of a healthy lifestyle. It's meant to be an addition to the things that you're already utilizing. The other thing, too, is we are bringing in our own olive oil, so there'll be half-liter bottles, and I think what we've learned over the research from the Italians and the Greeks is that kind of the sweet spot between taste and health is about 500 milligrams of polyphenols per liter. Joe likes the 500 milligram range. You can actually taste that.
Sure.
You're okay
Absolutely.
with it.
Yep.
But so again, not only can you do the supplement to kind of make sure you're getting the highest amount of polyphenols, you can also cook with it. Switch out butter for this high phenolic olive oil. And the nice thing is, if you invest in a bottle with this, it's not going to go bad in 3 months or even 6 months. It should last beyond that, based on research.
The other portion of that, which you said very briefly there, was that you can cook with it. And other olive oil has a very low smoke point, which means that when you're cooking with it, there's a small window of heat that it can sustain without actually breaking down the olive oil, whereas what we are going to be bringing into the States can sustain cooking in higher heats and still maintain that polyphenol level. So we talked about cooking, anything, right? A tortilla chip within the oil, and now that tortilla chip contains polyphenols that will be beneficial to you. So we're really excited about that as well.
The other thing is, if you've never had French fries in high phenolic olive oil, you got to try them. They're delicious. Yeah. Some of the best potatoes I ever had were in this small tavern in the mountains north of Rethymno, Crete, and I didn't want to eat anything else except the fried potatoes, because we asked them how they cook it, and it's like, the area around Crete where that is, they produce some of the best high phenolic olive oil in the world consistently, and flavorful, tasty, and really good. You kind of get that benefits of the high phenolic olive oil, and your mind starts to go, could you put this in other foods or things? Could you do those things? You can, and I think of, I know they were putting olive oil in coffee, but that, unfortunately, that olive oil wasn't high quality. It doesn't work. And the minute you put that olive oil in the coffee, it begins to degrade because of the heat. So, there's lots of things you can do. And I think to find a way to incorporate, high phenolic olive oil into your diet, and, have fun with it, see what works for you, and see what benefits you can get from it.
Well, and that's the exciting thing about the oil we're going to bring in is your food really does become medicine, because the benefits of that oil are not lost from cooking with it. And that's all you do, is you make that choice to cook with it every day, and maybe even continue to eat some of the same foods that you're eating right now, but it becomes medicine because those polyphenols transfer into your food. And then it becomes an everyday lifestyle change. And that's where you can make big changes in your long-term health. So,
and we should have the olive oil soon.
Very soon. We're excited.
Very soon. Yep. And then I think moving forward, what we're going to try to do is try to maybe have some of these researchers who I've met, so we can get a researcher that specifically does work on, high phenolic olive oil and, the benefits for the brain, someone for the benefits of cardiovascular health, and then someone else, for, some of the anti-cancer effects. So I think we're going to try to bring some of these researchers to you, so you can hear the same things we're hearing, and, make your own decisions, and also do some of your own research on your own, and kind of read some of the things that we do, but also hear from the people that wrote those papers.
All right. Well, Doc, thanks for spending some time talking about this today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope to be back soon with more information and dive a little bit deeper into olive oil, the benefits, and some of this research that Dr. Matos has touched on.
Yep. Thanks, everyone, and we look forward to help educate you on the Mediterranean diet, lifestyle, and the benefits of high phenolic olive oil. Thanks again.
And food is medicine.
Food is medicine.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.